One question I have been asked more times than I can count. In fact, I've been asked this question a bazillion times since starting this channel, and that is, Pez, if you could pitch an idea to Square for a new Final Fantasy game, what would you propose? What would you come up with? What's your vision for a whole new Final Fantasy? Now, to me, the answer is simple. In fact, I want to put Square Enix in the middle of a room, chanting shame for not doing it sooner. And that is a Final Fantasy Summons game. Oh, a Summons game. It would work. It would be dope. I can't believe Square Enix haven't seen the very obvious opportunity that there is with this. And I do suggest this as a spin-off title as opposed to a mainline. But this is an idea. It's not new. It's not original. So many fans have said this and said, yeah, that would be a dope idea. And the Summons deserve it, because countless times they've been the heroes. They've even been the villains. They've had personalities, aspirations, hopes, dreams. Like in FF6, when they were led by Manduin, they had their own village, a society that they lived in. Or let's go to FF4, where they raised one of our heroes in a kingdom as their own daughter. You had Leviathan and Ashura as king and queen. And I've seen so many times that when they do stuff like that with summons in games, that fans love it. They love it when they're more than just mindless beings that fight at your side, and they kind of more take on their own role and identity. And I think that was one of the things that really excited people for 15. I won't say anything for spoilers, but the involvement that the summons had in the story, and that they kind of had actual motivations and ambitions of their own. So I think that that's something that fans like, that they were hyped for, but Square Enix have never taken into overdrive. They've never capitalized and really focused on, I think, what is absent in the Final Fantasy universe. And I definitely do think there is an absence, because in this fan base there is an overarching lore that connects all Final Fantasy games, but they've never explained how summons fit into all of this, how they reoccur in every single Final Fantasy. I kind of feel like it needs explaining, but before I get into that, I just want to clarify, when I said spin-off title, I don't mean some low-end Derpington mobile title. I'm not talking some low-budget spin-off. I'm talking a real AAA budget summon, because anything less would not do justice for these MVPs. Now, while I could go for an hour explaining the vision that I have for this, it would probably come across as really cheesy and fanfiction-y. So, even though admittedly, so would probably most other FF games. Like if I tried to explain FF7 or 10 or 12 before any of you knew them, it would probably sound really cheesy as just a super quick plot outline. I'll screw it, I'm gonna go full nerdalicious and just explain it. Buckle up, this is the idea I would pitch to Square Enix. When I look at the magnitude of our universe, yep, that's already how deep we're getting. It's a vast network of billions of galaxies and universes, an incomprehensible number, more than our own and growing by the day. But the question that people always ask, where did it all begin? And when thinking of the Final Fantasy franchise, I applied that same curiosity, because this is a universe. When the franchise, it is a confirmed multiverse, and by that same detail are all connected. By that logic, we can ask, where did it all begin? They all do exist alongside each other. They did it in 14, they did it in Dissidia, they did it in WoF. Any kind of crossover game, Square Enix always go to great length to come up with really intricate and elaborate but canonical explanations of why this is a multiverse. And these aren't totally different separate universes, they're just universes all within a multiverse. So you get what I'm saying, guys? They exist. So that question, where did it all begin? Where did this multiverse begin? Did it begin with one universe and it's expanded? If so, what was the original Final Fantasy universe? But the more curious and interesting question is, how is it that they all have summons in common? How is that a thing? I mean, how does each universe have an Ifrit or a Shiva? Admittedly different versions of them, but still named the same things, and it's like the one concurrent thing that appears in each one. Now, while some of the games they have teetered on explanations of actually how you can summon, like via materia or specifically gifted individual, and they've had explanations on how they appear in the universe, but few actually explain the very roots of their creation. Where does this being called Shiva or Odin actually originate from? Introducing the FF Summons game. Imagine playing an FF game where you learned about the first Carbuncle or the first Alexander. Now, to be clear, I'd love to see them to do it as a really strong cast of human characters, and I don't want some sort of game where you actually have Alexander and Ifrit and Shiva in a party. I want players who resemble the traits of those summons, and the characterization would indeed have to be really strong, because surprisingly, despite the tons of FF games there are, one thing that's always been pretty consistent is how typically each summon has kept a distinct yet identifiable personality trait. And this could explain why that is. So Ifrit is the hot-headed pyromaniac, or he could be the flame for justice. Shiva is often the humanitarian. Ramuh, he's always the wise old kush-smoking wizard. Or Bahamut, he's the righteous leader, or a power-hungry tyrant. Like, they've always kept rough outlines of traits, which again is something crazy to carry across the length of a multiverse. So I would like to see dank Nomura level designed human character models, get Nomura on, and that these characters, they show hints or traits, so we would know, that dude's going to be Ifrit. That dude's going to be the Bahamut. Kind of give us those hints, but perhaps even go further and expand on that summon's original base character. Because the thing is, with summons, whenever they have had their stories in FF games, it's always just kind of been like a shoehorned in side story that have never really had enough time to be fully explored. So it's time to put it into the limelight, and flesh it out. But skipping straight to the ultimate finale of my vision, because it's probably coming across as fanfiction-y at this point. I mean, I hope it's not. I hope you guys can see and get the vision I'm going for. But we've often seen that within these distinct personalities, the summons, they very seldom ever agree. What if these characters also have those distinct divides and separations? What if that leads to their own universe being destroyed? So in this entire adventure, it has a super tragic ending. But then, in the ashes of the destruction that they failed to prevent, they do what Sakaguchi, the father of Final Fantasy, always said an FF had to do at the end, and that was to leave hope for the future. This would be so deep, because that ethos, it has been the core foundation of Final Fantasy from day one. So imagine this FF Summons game that explains the origins of the first universe. Because the summons disagreed, they unitedly come together, and with their gifts, they craft, are you ready for it? The first crystal. Oh, that would be so deep. That would be such a plot twist, because the only other thing besides the summons in this multiverse, it is the crystals, because the crystals, they're what bring magic to the universes. So by that same definition, they're what allow the summons to manifest in the worlds, what gives our heroes the powers that they need to complete their adventures. It all goes back to the crystals. I think it would be such a significant plot twist. They do what the Gooch himself, they leave hope for the future. As part of their redemption, they put their powers, their gifts, their essence into a crystal. They form it all into one crystal. As part of their redemption, that somewhere out there, in some form, their gift could be used for the hopeful good and succeed where they had failed, to give other heroes a chance to save their universes. It would explain why each has summons and crystals, and if Square Enix, they did it just right, this game, it would be a success, because every fan, I mean every single one, could unite behind a concept like this, because regardless of our differences of opinions on which FF game is the best or which is shit, and it's something we pointlessly always argue about, we all know the summons, be it Espers, Aeons, Guardian Forces, Eidolons, Avatars, Primals, or Astrals. I probably missed some off there. We all have a fond memory of summons in some way or another, and pitch it at just the right level of emotion, and this could be the game that would change how we viewed summons and even other FF games, older FF games. Oh my god, this would be deep. Of course it would. Imagine it. You go back and you bust out some splendiferous old version of a FF title you've got, and you would be reminded of the origins. Like after playing this Origins games, when you played 7 and you pulled out Ifrit, you would realise what it took for this Ifrit to be here. I mean, you know what I'm saying, guys. Every time you summoned, it wouldn't just be a pointless activity anymore. It would now have it would have a greater weight to it. Now, if the game's impactful enough, you will never call forth a summon in the same way again. But there it is. That's my response at long last to what would I create if I was Square Enix. Oh god, that's how low I think of Square Enix right now. It's even making me choke suggesting it. But what do you think, guys? Hit the like button if you think that's a good idea, if you like my vision, if you get it. Now, would you be up for seeing an FF Summons game? Let me know what you think. Feel free to express your opinion. And yeah, if you've got any ideas of your own for an FF title, let me know in the comment section below. Until the next video, goodbye.